We're back and better than ever, and we're still in 9.4 where we're learning how to name acids. In the last podcast, we showed you how to take a formula and create its name. You change your ates to ic, your ites to us's, and your ides turn into hydroblanchic acid. Now we're going to take the names of the acid and try to recreate the formulas. All right? So we're at the bottom here. We have phosphoric acid. Phosphoric comes from the phosphate ion. Phosphate is PO4 3-. The fact that it's an acid means that it's going to be combining with hydrogen, which is a +1 charge. You need, therefore, 3 hydrogens to combine with the phosphate ion to balance the charge. So, therefore, phosphoric acid will be H3PO4. Acetic acid. Acetic comes from the acetate ion. Acetate is C2H3O2, and it has a 1- charge. Hydrogen, of course, has a +1 charge, so therefore you're going to combine it to form HC2H3O2. So that is the formula for acetic acid, which is vinegar, basically. When it's diluted, we call it vinegar. Now, by the way, a lot of people will say, why don't you include this first hydrogen in with the other 3? Or why are these other 3 separate from the first? The reason why is because these 3 hydrogens here in the middle are not acidic. You'll learn exactly what an acid is in Chemistry B. It's basically a compound that can donate hydrogens. But the problem is these 3 hydrogens are not able to be donated, so that we don't refer to them as acidic hydrogens. You don't have to worry about all that. Just simply take your hydrogen with the +1, the acetate ion with the -1, and stick them together. Now, hydrofluoric acid, on the other hand, anything acid comes from a monatomic anion or an IDE ending. It doesn't actually have to be monatomic as long as it's an IDE ending. Hydrofluoric comes from the fluoride ion. So when you combine that with hydrogen, it's simply going to be HF, hydrofluoric acid. Okay, coming down to carbonic acid. Carbonic acid comes from the carbonate ion. Of course, you need to bring in the hydrogens. You're going to need 2 hydrogens to balance the charge, so it's going to be H2CO3, and that's the acid that's in soda pop. Okay, carbonic acid. Iodous acid. Iodous comes from iodite. Us comes from ites. So iodous comes from iodite, which is IO2, 1- charge. When you combine that with a hydrogen, you're going to have HiO2, iodous acid. And finally, we have perbromic acid. Perbromic comes from perbromate, which is Br O4, 1-. And when you combine that with a hydrogen, which is a +1, you only need 1 hydrogen to balance the charge, so it's going to be HBrO4, perbromic acid. So again, you change your ates to ics, your ites to us's. IDE is hydroblanchic acid, and it works in the reverse just the same. All right. Now that concludes chapter 9. We're going to try to put together some type of review, and in class I'll give you a map that will help you unpack or choose which system of naming of compounds that you're going to want to use. Whether you're naming an ionic compound, which is a cation-anion name, whether you're naming a covalent or molecular compound, which is using the prefixes, or whether you're using the acid naming system when you're dealing with acids. Okay? That concludes chapter 9.